For the 7th race in this year's ADAC GT Masters, we are by the seaside. We're at Zandvoort in Holland, the former home of the Dutch Grand Prix. And the grid is about to form, ready for the first of 2 races this weekend. The usual format, it is 60 minutes plus 1 lap. And we come into this race with 6 different winning combinations in the first 6 races. A 7th would equal a record set in 2008. And if we could have 8 different winners by the end of tomorrow evening, it will be a new record in the ADAC GT Masters. And it's possible because there's a whole host of drivers that have yet to taste glory. And this is a circuit that traditionally is pretty kind to Porsche. It's also been kind to the BMW Z4 in the past as well. You can see down on the grid the cars formed in the herringbone formation, ready for the rolling start in this, the 11th season of ADAC GT Masters. 7 events, 14 races, 1 hour plus a lap is the duration, a 65-second pit stop, and that pit window coming between 25 and 35 minutes. It's another good mixed grid looking down on it. You've got Audi represented, there's Lamborghini in profusion, Corvette, Porsche, Mercedes and BMW as well. Pole position after qualifying this morning claimed by the Callaway competition Corvette, Jules Gounon sharing with Renger van der Zande, the Dutch driver, more normally these days seen in Mercedes, indeed a former winner of the FIA GT World Cup for Mercedes at Macau. He is drafted into that car to replace Daniel Karlowitz, who injured himself, broke his leg while practicing at Spa. There is the pole-sitting Corvette. As we have a look at the grid, it'll be Jules Gounon with 10 kilos of extra weight on board who will start. And with him at the front of the grid, Marcus Pommer starting in Audi number 3 with Kelvin van der Linde. Then third on the grid, Luca Stolz. Luca Ludwig stands alongside the car. Ezequiel Perez Compact's Lamborghini is next. Mirko Bortolotti will do the second stint. Then it's Sebastian Asch, who will be relieved by Stefan Mucker standing by the car. Indy Donscher is next. Marvin Kirchhofer does the second stint. Then you get to Florian Spengler, joined by Christopher Zanella and reigning champion Christopher Mies there, with Conor de Felipe already installed in number 1. Next on the grid is 42 Nick Katzberg, replacing Ricky Collard, who is at Moscow. Philipp Eng to take over ahead of Philip Salaquadra and Marcus Winkelhock. Next on the grid is Jeffrey Schmidt's Audi. Christopher Hauser to do the second stint with Dennis Marshall next up, with Patrick Niederhauser there standing alongside the car. Next on the grid, Philipp Geipel, a winner here last year with Rahal Frey. And then you get to the ex-single-seater racer Mike Ortman with the hugely experienced Frank Stippler. There he is, ready to do the second stint ahead of Rolf Ineichen. He'll be relieved by Christian Engelhardt. And then it is the reigning French Porsche champion Mathieu Jaminet with Michael Ammermüller as the co-driver. Next on the grid, Patrick Assenheimer moving to Mercedes this year with Maxi Götz to do the second stint. Norbert Siedler will start in the Lamborghini to be relieved by Marco Mappelli. Ahead on the grid of Klaus Bachler with Alex McDowell to do the second stint. And then Nikolai Rogivu will take the first stint in number 20 Mercedes, Nikolai Silvestre to follow him. Then it is going to be Christopher Hurt with Elliot Earhart as the second driver. Jonathan Udek and Emil Lindholm, rallyman as well as racer, comes next ahead of Ricardo Feller and Michaela Arling-Kotelinski. Adrian Delino will start the Porsche, shared by Christopher Friedrich ahead of Sven Barth and Max Heckländer. Then it's Remo Lips and Mark Gassner. And at the very back, there it is, number 99, one to watch, Robert Renard and a smiling Sven Muller. He wasn't smiling this morning when Renard put it in the gravel after a spin. We've had red flags in a number of the sessions over the course of the day. Drivers, start your engines. The board is shown. We had a red flag, first of all, in qualifying after number 20 Mercedes. Nikolai Rogivu went off the road, and then a second one after Robert Renard put the Porsche in the gravel. We've also got a couple of grid drops. I've mentioned already the way they line up, but Nick Katzberg and Philipp Eng's car given a 5-place grid drop for not respecting, in the hands of Philipp Eng, the red flags in free practice 1, and also Dennis Marshall in number 4 Audi not respecting red flags in free practice 1. So it's a 5-place grid drop, and that's carried into the next race that the driver participates in, whether they are the start driver or the second driver. Therefore, it goes into this first race, so they drop down on the grid accordingly. In terms of success ballast, based on the results last time out, Rolf Ineichen and Christian Engelhardt will carry 30 kilos in number 63 Lamborghini, 20 kilos for Sebastian Asch and Stefan Mucker, and 10 for the pole car, Jules Gounon and Renger van der Zande, and the Dutchman eager to score victory on home ground as we get set for round 7 of the championship, the first of 2 races this weekend. The pace car, as it is, leads the field around then this fabulous old school circuit through the Tarzan hairpin. And then the cars wriggle their way round the back of the paddock through the Gerlach curve in towards the Hugenholz box, that left-hand hairpin that loops the cars round to the outer part of the circuit, speed building all the while as they work their way then through the S up towards the Slottermacher curve. And then at the top of the lap, there is Schreeflag, through which they turn 7, effectively, the fast right-hander that leads you to the Masters curve. And that is where we had a number of the spins this morning. There you can see the midfield working through Hugenholzbach. This takes you to the Slottermacher curve. And Jules Gounon, then it is, on pole position, leading the cars on this formation lap as we get ready for 60 minutes plus 1 lap of action in the dunes. Out of Schreeflag they come, and then up towards the right-hander of the Masters curve. And then you get to the unnamed section, turns 9 and 10. Schreeflag is where you've had a number of incidents over the years, but so far, certainly the GT cars this weekend keeping out of trouble. A recap of the grid then. Jules Gounon starts at the front with ex-Formula 3 racer Marcus Pommer for company. The second row is Lucas Stolz lining up alongside Ezequiel Perez Compact. So you've got Mercedes and Lamborghini on the second row of the grid. The third row, Sebastian Asch for Mucker with the Mercedes, and then local driver Indy Donker's Mercedes alongside ahead of Florian Spengler, and then lining up alongside him is Conor de Filippi as the cars now start to thread their way back down towards the end of the lap. The Hans Ernst curve is next, named after the man that masterminded the circuit for over 20 years. The fifth row, Nick Katzberg, local driver, of course, Dutch driver, lining up alongside Philippe Salaquadra, ahead of Jeffrey Schmidt and Dennis Marshall. Then you've got Philip Geipel with Mike David Ortman for company. He starts 14th, ahead of Rolf Van Eyck and a long way back. And Mathieu Jeminet with Michael Ammermuller for company in that car a long way back on the grid as well, as now the rest of the field cycles through. We've got an Audi rather slow there. Look, it's a land car by the look of it that's crawling out of the Hans Ernst curve section, and just looking to see whether that's a car that's going to have to head for the pit lane or whether it had got itself out of sequence and is dropping back. Just hard to tell off that shot as the cars now turn their way through the Arie Luyendyk curve. Everybody has not got themselves in formation. That Audi grinding to a halt. I've got a horrible feeling it's one of the 2 Audi Sport Racing Academy cars. Are we going to be good for a start? Let's see if that car grinds to a halt. There it is. In fact, it's number 2. It's the land car, number 2 of Jeffrey Schmidt. The lights are red. The start's going to be aborted, isn't it, with that car stranded on the circuit? They're going to have to go round again, surely. The lights stay red. The yellow and orange lights rather flash to say it's an aborted start, an extra formation lap. But this is going to count, is it, within the hour, because the clock has started. And there is number 2 then, stranded by the side of the road. And Nick Katzberg in number 42, BMW, also shown as having come down the pit lane. So you've got one car that's ground to a halt. You've got another one that's now in the pits. So number 2, Audi, did not get away. 42 is pitted straight away. And there is the pace car ready to pick them up again. So back out has gone number 42, and the clock has been reset. So the race not yet officially underway. The clock has been reset. It tripped, of course, as the cars came over the line, but it has been reset. So we're still... well, we are good to go again, but not for an hour, but for 57 minutes, okay? It was an hour, now it's been reset at 57 minutes to take into account the extra formation lap. Are you keeping up with this? So extra formation lap, and then now 57 minutes this race will be. I'll tell you what that does to the pit window in a moment. So the cars will work their way through this lap. Daniel Karvitz's accident from Spa being shown, which accounts for why he is handing over to Renger van der Zande for this weekend. It was a huge impact that Daniel suffered. So 57 minutes after this second green flag lap, this formation lap. And the other thing I'm trying to keep an eye to in all of this is where Nick Katzberg's BMW is, and is it going to be able to start in position, or is it going to start at the back of the field? The Alfa Romeo Corse car comes through. Well, number 2 is a non-starter. That much, sad to say, is confirmed as the Jeffrey Schmidt Christopher Hasse entry goes no further. It looks as though Katzberg has put himself into position. So is that the right thing to have done? There is the BMW look on the inside of the Mucker Audi as they turn their way now up through the right-hander of the Arie Luyendyk curve. And so after 2 formation laps now, and therefore 3 minutes taken off the overall duration. We are good to go racing. So here we go again. The 7th race within the ADAC GT Masters for 2017 here at Zandvoort. It's dry, it's sunny, it's a bit breezy, and as the lights are red, they will change in a moment. It is going to be green and go as the cars blast off down towards the Tarzan hairpin. A good start made by Jules Gounon then in the Corvette, dropping back. Look, Marcus Palmer in the Audi because he's been mugged as well by Lucas Stoltz. Then having a look to the inside line, Ezequiel Perez Compact in the green Lamborghini as they round the hairpin for the first time. It is Jules Gounon then up front. They've all negotiated the hairpin okay. Look at the back of the grid. Robert Renard in a big hurry in the Porsche. Nick Katzberg replacing Ricky Collard along with Philippe Eng in the BMW. Ricky Collard doing DTM taxi rides at Moscow. He is also storming up. Nick Katzberg, who's been one of the stars, of course, in recent years for Volvo in the World Touring Car Championship, as well as winning the Spa 24 Hours for BMW. He's on a mission here as he tries to get the Schnitzer car up the order through the Rob Slottermacher box. They turn for the first time out of Skyflach and then down towards the Masters Curve. With that coming under attack, look, the yellow Mercedes of Indy Donkey looking back there now. You've got the whole pack bearing down on the traffic as they work their way through the Masters Curve and then now up through this sequence of turns 9 and 10. Donkey coming under attack from 26, which is the Mucker Mercedes. That car started by Sebastian Ash. This is Nick Katzberg's view as the cars blast their way down towards the Hans Ernst Curve for the first time. Clock ticks on down then as the cars now sprint their way up towards the end of the lap. Jules Gounon leads the way, and as they work their way to the Ari Lyndike curve for the first racing time, Gounon is trying to build this advantage over everybody else. What progress is Renard making? It's limited. He's only gained 2 spots. Dust is kicked up. No car in gravel. Gounon leads at the end of lap 1, but Lucas Stoltz going with him then in number 21 Mercedes. This is going to be a good fight between these 2 big grunty cars. You've got Gounon then ahead of Stoltz, on board with Katzberg, down to the Tarzan hairpin. He's right on the tail here, look, of 26 Sebastian Ash. The top 2 getting away. 3rd is Palmer in the black and red Audi. 4th is Compact. 5th is Indy Donkey, and a good move there being made up on the inside as Florian Spengler goes ahead of Conor de Filippi, the reigning champion in the green and white Audi. Winner of the Nürburgring 24 Hours this year, loses 1 spot, but the gaps are opening up just a little bit up the road now, and off the road has gone 24. Look, that I'm afraid to say out of the race already is Philip Salaquada. How he got there, was he pushed, did he fall, or was it mechanical? We'll find out in a moment. You were looking back from Donkey, you're looking forward from Katzberg's car, and in the middle is the pink Mercedes, Sebastian Ash at the wheel. He split, of course, from Zakspeed this year to go to Mucker, and he's got Le Patron's son, Stefan Mucker, with him in that combination. Peter Mucker's team, having ditched its Formula 3 plans, and now concentrating on GT, and the only team as well running cars from 2 different manufacturers. They've got a Mercedes and an Audi as well. Katzberg then riding shotgun in the works livery on the Schnitzer BMW. Schnitzer, of course, another team with touring car as well as GT commitments this weekend. Katzberg then accelerates out of the Hans Ernst curve up towards the completion of lap number 2. Now Marcus Palmer, after his sluggish start, is getting on with the job now and trying to close back up onto the top 2 ahead. He did the absolute best in the first sector. Charlie Lamb and Philippe Eng watch this car come over the timing line. Nick Katzberg is inching up onto the back now in 7th of Sebastian Ash as they drop down towards Tarzan once again. Conor de Filippi pulls out, has a look at Florian Spengler and pulls back in again. Robert Renard in the meantime from the back of the grid, still trying to make progress. He's up to 21st place, but he's leaving Sven Müller, the reigning German champion in Porsches and the Porsche Super Cup champion, with a lot of work to do. But the game is on for the race lead. Jules Gounon leading by 0.3 of a second at the end of the previous lap. He's not really getting away now, is he, from Lucas Stoltz, who's yet to win this year. So if Stoltz can find a way past, he could be the 7th different winning crew, or heading that 7th different winning crew of the year. Gounon with Daniel Kalvitz, winners at the Red Bull Ring. And Jules, former F4 racer, Porsche racer, now very much a GT star. Corvette in this championship, Mercedes in Blancpain. Many of these drivers limbering up for 24 hours of action next weekend, the Spa 24 Hours, which takes a number of these drivers and teams on a much longer journey. Nick Katzberg then thunders his way out of turn 10. Speed building now on the run down to the Hans Ernst curve. It's not easy to overtake at Zandvoort. but if you're brave, you can do it. He's not really close enough, though, so Sebastian Ash drops away slightly from Indy Donker and therefore has to think about defending as the cars now go right and then through that looping left, short straight, round the back of the paddock. Then it's the Kumho Corvette to the Arie Luijendijk box, formerly the boss out at the end of the lap. Fastest lap of the race last time around, set by Lukas Stolz on a mission here, trying to close on Gounon for the race lead. It was 0.390 last lap through. It's 0.4 this time. The danger, though, is Pommer, because he's got even quicker than the two ahead of him. He's bringing the gap down. You can see the margin, 3rd to 4th now. Marcus Pommer getting away from Ezequiel Perez Companc. Then Indy Donker 5th in the Man Filter Mercedes. In 6th spot it is Sebastian Ash. There's a right old battle pack going on lower down as well. Remo Lips 22 in the Nissan, after all these years finally forsaking the Corvette, and he's got Mark Gassner with him in the Nissan this weekend. Patrick Houseman having stood down, having not really been overly happy about the car, the team and everything else. So it's another shuffle of drivers. It is almost 3 for the lead look as they turn their way now through Schijflach. It is remaining up front, the Corvette, but look at the way that Pommer is hustling on. The cork in the bottle, in a sense, might be the Chevrolet. Stolz hasn't found a way past him, but he's being caught by Pommer. He can't stretch the legs of the Mercedes because he's got that Corvette rumbling away up front. Nick Katzberg, you're on board with him again, comes now up through turn 9, and a replay here of kicking up the dirt, the Corvette from lower down, number 13. That's Sven Barth at the wheel of it. And a yellow flag being waved. Now, for why is that the car needs retrieval? Is it the Philip Salaquada Audi that we lost early on in the race? We've also lost, we haven't actually seen it anywhere, we've also lost Philip Geipel's Audi. So maybe those two cars got themselves together because they went missing pretty much at the same time. At the back of the pack at the moment is the 66 Lambo, the ADAC NSA Attempto car of Jonathan Udek. Marcus Pommer then thunders over the line, and is he quicker than the two ahead? Yeah, he's still chipping away as there Stolz has a look to the inside line, hard on the brakes, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, down through the box. Pommer, who hands this car over to former champion Kelvin van der Linde, moving away these days from single-seater racing, turns his way now out of the Gerlach curve down towards the Hugenholtz curve, and you can see the way that they are concertinaing for the race lead. Gounon in the Chevrolet, Stolz in the Mercedes, Pommer in the Audi. There's a gap back of over 2 seconds to Companc in the Lamborghini. Look, who's dropping away in 4th spot. 5th is the bright green and yellow Mercedes of Donker. 6th, it is now Sebastian Ash in the Pink Panther, the Mucke Run Mercedes. Pommer accelerates towards the Masters curve through the right. Closes again under braking at turn 9. And Lukas Stolz getting a bit frustrated now because he hasn't really been able to make a proper move against Gounon, who's doing everything right up front, maintaining his pace. Stolz, an experienced driver, had a spell with Bentley. He's gone strongly in things like Porsches in one-make racing. He's gone strongly for Mercedes in GT. And now, 4th, Companc has done the absolute best in the first sector as he starts to close on the traffic ahead of him now. That gap's coming down, therefore, 3rd to 4th. So the line of cars, there you can see the Lamborghini hustling on. That line of cars for the race lead is getting longer and longer all the time. The leaders come over the timing line. It was 3/10 last lap between the top two. It's still 3/10 between them, but now 9/10 covers 1st to 3rd, and Stolz needs to be on his toes here. Companc has now done the fastest lap of the race in 4th. 5th is Donker, 6th is Ash, 7th is Katzberg, 8th is Florian Spengler, then 9th, right on his tail, is number 1, Conor De Filippi, and in 10th place at the moment is Dennis Marshall. De Filippi here trying to get his place back, remember. Spengler mugged him a couple of laps back. 5 are in the book. And now as they go to the Hugenholtz box once more, through that left, it is the Lamborghini hanging onto the place. Through the Rob Schlottermacher curve they go, and now the run to the far side of the circuit towards Schijflach, and then on towards the Masters curve. And while Spengler here is defending, so the Land team not looking overly happy about life. Christopher Mees knowing he's got a job on his hands in his stint, and Christopher Hasse with nothing to do because number 2 never got into the race. The race leaders then thread their way up towards the Hans Ernst curve. We're currently on lap number 6. It's a 57-minute, slightly shortened race because of the extra formation lap and this queue is forming. You've got Spengler, then ahead of De Filippi, then Marshall, and drama for number 25 Audi now. Mike Ortman has had a spin, gets himself going again. He was a long way back anyway in 18th place, but I'm afraid to say that compromises his efforts even more. Now let's have a look. I think he might have been tapped into that. Look up the road. There's a Mercedes fleeing the scene of the crime, and that was, I would offer you, Nikolai Rogivu getting involved. There you can see from the back of the car, the Audi stranded in the road. Robert Renault still pushing on in the Porsche, finding a rotating R8 ahead of him, and also very, very, very close to disaster a bit lower down was number 18, the Timo Bernhardt team Porsche of Adrian Delina at the wheel. Mike Ortman gets away at the back of the field. We've now done 6 laps in this 57-minute race, and there, the top 3 in the same order, still headed by Jules Gounon. In second place, Lucas Stoltz. The gap has gone up fractionally, in fact, between the top 2, half a second last time around. Florian Spengler there, still keeping Conor De Filippi at bay, the American who has made a name for himself racing in Europe. And a few laps ago, remember, we saw 24 Philippe Salaquada off the road. We've also lost, as I mentioned, Philippe Geipel. I wondered if the two were connected. The incident between car 50 and car 24 is under investigation. It was connected. We've not been able to piece it together as yet, but clearly something happened between the two, and the stewards are going to have a look at it. It's been referred by Niels Vitic, the race director, to the stewards. They'll have a look and see if anybody was responsible or whether it was just a racing incident. As there, look at all this. Nissan, Audi, Mercedes all squabbling together. This is lower down the field. 15th, 16th, 17th. Keep going back. Remo Lips ahead of Patrick Assenheimer. Not anymore, because Assenheimer in the Mercedes has finally gone through up into 15th place. And Robert Renault now comes up to have a go at the Audi just up the road ahead of Ricardo Feller. Patrick Assenheimer finally having forsaken Corvettes for Mercedes. The family has a big Mercedes dealership, so for marketing purposes you can understand why they needed Patrick really in a Mercedes, and so this year he's made that transition, and Assenheimer driving with Maxi Goetz. A replay of the race leader coming down to the Hans Ernst curve with the gap down under braking. Lucas Stoltz right there behind Jules Gounon, and you can see Marcus Pommer in 3rd spot. Still the best lap of the race, done by Compact 4th. But Gounon looking very strong indeed up front at the moment in the Callaway competition Corvette. The C7 GT3 leading the way, but Stoltz remains on his toes. He's there now, isn't he? Close enough to challenge, trying to force a mistake out of Jules Gounon, son of former Formula 1 and sports car racer Jean-Marc. But Jules Gounon leading the way. He knows what a Mercedes is capable of course, because he races one for a different team, not Zach Speed, but the Jerome Policon ACA ASP squad within Blancpain, so he knows the strengths and the weaknesses of the Mercedes. Marcus Pommer there in 3rd place as well, hanging on in there in the Aust Motorsport car run by Frank Aust's team, and this is Pommer's view as he clouts the curb at the end of the straight. That incident between Geipel and Salaquada is going to the stewards, as I mentioned, as in towards now the Kumho curve comes Marcus Pommer. The Audi is good at certain parts of the circuit, loses out at others, and Compact still has the fastest lap of the race to his name. The leaders come through. They'll break the timing beam now, and as they hustle on, it was a second covering the top 3 last time. It is 9/10ths covering the top 3 this time around. The gap's growing within the top 7, but here's the battle pack for 8th. Spengler ahead of Conor De Filippi, ahead of Dennis Marshall as they come over the line. At the rear of that little group, 14th, is Klaus Bachler in the Porsche of Schutz Motorsport that he shares with Alex McDowell. The Brit, and wide goes Spengler, but not wide enough really to give De Filippi a chance to get up the inside. Patrick Assenheimer has done the fastest lap of the race. Now that he has been released from behind Remo Lips, he's just been able to do the fastest lap with the HTP Motorsport Mercedes-AMG GT3. Spengler holding up De Filippi a little bit here. Behind him, you've got Dennis Marshall in the other Aust Motorsport car. Number 17 Porsche, Mathieu Jaminet, hustling on, but not really getting himself up the order, but absolutely flying is Assenheimer. Look, he's going to be up with Klaus Bachler before long, because you tend to get stuck in traffic. It's not that easy, as I say, to overtake around here, so if you do get yourself into a little battle, it is hard to make progress. Robert Renault, however, has got himself into the top 20 now, at the expense of Sven Barp. Has gone through on the inside down to the Hans Ernst curve, but almost got a tap in the tail for his trouble from the RWT Racing Corvette behind. There it is from the back. Robert Renard, winner of the Dubai 24 Hours at the start of the season, and a regular with the Herbert Motorsport team that he has a say in running in Blancpain as well as in ADAC GT Masters and the Creventic Run 24-hour series. Busy team, busy driver, like many of the drivers on this grid. Multiple championships. The top three still covered by 9/10 of a second. We've got 42 minutes to go as the field threads its way through the hairpin at Tarzan. There is Nick Katzberg's BMW, struggling a bit really to make much more progress up to the back of the cars ahead, and if anything he's dropped away from Sebastian Ash, hasn't he, by nearly a second. Conor De Filippi once more tries to get up the inside, but the Audis don't seem to have the pace around here. They've got the nimbleness, they go through the corners, but they seem to lose out in terms of overall grunt. Florian Spengler doing a good job of defending here. Former polo racer, Porsche racer, GT racer, experienced hands, and Florian Spengler in the HB racing car hangs on to that place as they thread their way now through the Slottermacher corner. You can see that queue is growing though behind Spengler, so you've got what, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th is Jaminet in the Porsche, he is there. 13th behind them is Norbert Siedler, 14th is Klaus Bachler, and Patrick Assenheimer 15th, closing up as well. Wolfgang Land and Christopher Mies watch on, but they, just like Conor De Filippi, frustrated that he's not making more progress because it's hard to do it around here. And now that Dennis Marshall has arrived behind, Conor De Filippi will have to go defensive, and that means that he's got less opportunity to get past the HB Racing Lamborghini up the road ahead, because he's got to defend to take the slower lines. Down to the Hans Ernst curve, again they come. Turn right, turn left through that looping corner, short straight up towards the Kumo curve, and then the end of the lap is the Arie Luyendyk right-hander after that. Here are the leaders. You can see the way they're pairing off though now, because 1 and 2 are together, 3 and 4 are together. So Compact fourth in the leading Lambo has got himself onto the back of Marcus Pommer. Ezequiel Perez Compact improves season on season on season. Luca Stolz then in second place, closing onto the back of Jules Gounod. But this is a wonderful battle for 8th place. Every time you look, there's another car attached to it. Klaus Bachler, 14th now, very much part of it at the rear. Conor De Filippi, you get the feeling if he could find a way back ahead of Florian Spengler, could get away, but there's just no opportunity so to do at the moment. Looks to the outside line. That almost gave Dennis Marshall the chance at the Hugenholtz curve on the inside line there. Couldn't do it. And what about Bachler versus Siedler? That's going to be one to watch. You've got two star drivers there, 13th and 14th. Norbert Siedler, a few years ago, was one of the leading lights in one-make Porsche races. Now part of the Lamborghini family. Sooner or later, Florian Spengler may crack under the pressure, and there's a lot of it being applied now by Conor De Filippi as they work their way up towards the Masters curve. Through that right, drop down towards turn number 9. And Klaus Bachler, look at the rear of it in the Schutz Motorsport Porsche, is almost there. The race leaders then turn their way behind the paddock up towards the right at Kumo. And so Gounod leading the way. Winner with Daniel Karlwitz at the Red Bull Ring, and leading here as well as the field accelerates through the Arie Luyendyk curve. The Dutchman who made such a huge reputation for himself in IndyCar racing in the States, lending his name to the corner as the leaders go through. And first to third is 1 second, but Pommer has just done the fastest lap of the race, and they close again under braking for Tarzan. Now through the Gerlach curve they come, and Jules Gounod not getting away, but doing enough to maintain the advantage. He doesn't have to break away necessarily, but of course what's going to be fascinating now is looking into the second stint. Renger van der Zande, hugely accomplished driver, getting into the Corvette, a car he does not really know, versus Luca Ludwig, who's won championships in the Mercedes. And of course in this car that you're riding on board with now, Kelvin van der Linde will take over, and somebody of course who has also been a champion in this ADAC GT Masters, and he won that with an Audi. So okay, it was one of the earlier LMS Ultras, but even so, you've got two very experienced drivers about to take on Renger van der Zande. Not slow, not inexperienced, but having to adapt to new machinery. It will be really interesting to see, first of all, how the pit crews operate, and secondly, as there is Renger van der Zande ready to go, how he fares in the Corvette. Marcus Pommer then inching up onto the tail of Stolz for second spot, and Stolz still shadowing Jules Gounod as they ride the curbs coming through the Hans Ernst curve. round the back of the paddock now. And Ezequiel Perez Compang having dropped away once again. That's released Pommer, so hence the fastest lap of the race last time around. Compang kind of needs them to get stuck again, and then he can play catch-up, but he hasn't quite got the pace to live with them. Now, Ezequiel Perez Compang, number 19, gives way to Mirko Bortolotti. He's going to be very, very quick as well, so the second stint has a lot to look forward to here. Peter Zakowski, the team manager of the Zach Speed Mercedes, on the radio to Lukas Stolz, advising of what to do. The sister car is a long way back in 21st place rather now, as the Conor de Felipe Audi sprints up the inside, tries to make a move against Florian Spengler, couldn't do it. Dennis Marshall right on the tail as they accelerate out of Tarzan through the Gerlach curve once again here. The three cars here squabbling for 8th, 9th, 10th. Conor de Felipe in the Land Audi, the meat and the sandwich really. He's trying to attack and defend at the same time. We are about a minute and a half away from the pit window opening. That's not been changed according to the message line on the screen. Hasn't come up with an alternative opening and closing time under the 57 minutes as the leaders then turn through the Masters curve. Now, of course, while Spengler is defending like this, he's lost 16.5 seconds against the race leader. He's lost nearly 7.5 seconds to Katzberg up the road. So it's a kind of double whammy for De Felipe here. He can't find a way past, and therefore he's lost a place because he's stuck behind the Lamborghini. But net, he's going to lose even more places, potentially, because as the gap grows between 7th and this group for 8th, it makes it doubly difficult to try and bring down that gap in the second stint, however good Christopher Mies is behind the wheel. And Christopher specialises in Audi R8s, of course. Won many a race, many a title, many a major event behind the wheel of one. Spengler getting away just slightly as they came out of the Kuma curve that time. The race leaders then come over the timing line with the margin first to third, 11/10 of a second now. Or about half a minute off the pit window opening. And it may well be that some teams elect to bring the cars in early and get, first of all, a quicker driver in some cases, but also get them out of traffic. You can imagine, for example, in this group, look at the green Lamborghini, Rolf Ineichen staying in the queue, but Mirko Bortolotti, faster, will do the second stint, get him in early, get the car out of traffic, and then see what Bortolotti could do, for example. The same might be true of Jaminet and Ammermuller. And what about Norbert Siedler, who will, in his Lamborghini, give way to Marco Mappelli? Siedler might just be the faster of the two there, so the team's now having to play with the strategy a little bit. Same is true for Stolz, so they bring him in and put Ludwig in the car and try and clear the traffic. The pit window is now open, so Jules Gounon leads the way. He's never been more than, a few tenths, never more than half a second, really, away from Stolz, but he's done a good job in this first stint, controlled the pace, and comes then now through the Hans-Ernst curve, the top four bunching up again. The only lonely drivers, really, have been there, 5th, 6th and 7th. Donker ahead of Ash, ahead of Katzberg. Nick Katzberg, unlucky a week ago in World Touring Car terms, with punctured tyres costing him the chance of victory, but a very, very accomplished driver, whether it's a GT3 car or a touring car. Right, Gounon stays out, but in comes Ezequiel Perez Compang, and he will give way in number 19 Lamborghini to Mirko Bortolotti. There he is, ready to go. And this could be a shrewd move from the team. Also in is Sebastian Ash in 26 to give way to Stefan Mucker. Bortolotti has to leap over the board that's gone for a Burton. Down the pit lane comes Ash. Mirko Bortolotti gets into the car. A man who was incredibly focused when behind the wheel. Barely blinks. The concentration level is so intense. Ash out, Mucker in. The spots on the car are bubbles, if you want to know this. The car is backed by BTW, which is a magnesium-ated water, fizzy water, and those little spots are the bubbles reflected in the livery. Also in is Dennis Marshall there, number 4, to give way to the quick Patrick Niederhauser. Patrick Assenheimer is in for Maxi Goetz. Nikolai Rogivu is in for Nikolai Silvest. Renauer is in for Muller. Also in has come Sven Bart in number 13 Corvette to give way to Max Hackländer. Also in Remo Lips for Mark Gassner, and Jonathan Judek has come in to give way to Emil Lindholm. So lots of shuffling in the order. So Bortolotti blasts out. That car was fourth. It's going to be interesting to see after the pit stops whether or not Bortolotti will have gained or lost. The same is true really of Stefan Mucker behind him, the Ford factory driver, but you can see a safety car needed really here to bring Sven Muller back into the game for the Herbeth Motorsport team. The good news for drivers that are dealt a bad hand by their co-driver is that it's a different qualifying session tomorrow morning to make the grid, so you're not affected by the results of race 1. There's a standalone session for race 2. Away now goes Muller. Behind him is Maximilian Hackländer in the Corvette, number 13, the regular GT hand. So we are approaching the halfway point. Order shuffles thanks to the pit window. And now, look, some of those cars that have made their pit stops from the midfield to the back are now having been released ahead of the leaders. So there's traffic to factor in as Katzberg gives way to Philipp Eng. Number 20 Mercedes, the Rogivu Silver Zack-Speed car, is under investigation for the pit stop duration. So that car, I fear, may well have been a bit short on the pit stop. Hot brakes on the BMW as the 65 seconds are served by the team. So Katzberg is in, Seidler is in, Ricardo Feller is in, and Adrian Delina is in as well. Gunon staying out, Lukas Stolz staying out, Marcus Pommer staying out, Indy Donker fourth staying out. The leading three clear of the traffic. Another one under investigation is Ricardo Feller, Michaela Arlen-Kotelinski's car for speeding in the pit lane. I suspect that was Feller because it's shown as still being in the pit lane. So it was Feller coming in. A very fast Feller who therefore has attracted the attention of the officials. There is Gunon, the race leader. And this time Stolz and Pommer dive for the pit lane. This is Marcus Pommer's view. He comes down the pit lane ready to give way to Calvin van der Linde. Luca Ludwig, son of the great Klaus Ludwig, will take over the mobile Zack-Speed Mercedes that comes down the pit road ahead of him. A drive-through penalty is being given to the other Zack-Speed car for violation of the pit stop duration, presumably therefore too short. Try and double check that when we can find the times issued for each car, but Zack-Speed now needs to be careful not to make the same mistake here. If you can see the graphic, you can see the 65 seconds counting down as Luca Stolz straps in. Luca Ludwig, all the adjustments made, the seatbelts tightened, cables plugged in for the pit-to-car intercom. There is Calvin van der Linde, who has taken over now from Marcus Pommer. Also in is Klaus Bachler to give way to Alex McDowell, the British driver, and Mike Ortman has come in to give way after his spin to Frank Stippler, who scurries around the car ready to fold himself up, the very tall German, and then get on board. Frank, who's as good in a modern as he is in a historic GT car these days. Over the timing line they go as there, look, Mirko Bortolotti arrives on the scene. Is he going to be able to go through and gain a place? Yes, gets himself ahead of the Audi in the hands now of van der Linde, so the Lamborghini gains on the pit stops. Mirko Bortolotti's car then goes through and gains on the stops. So there, look, is Luca Ludwig, and there, behind Mirko Bortolotti then, who has moved through and gained one spot as the race leader comes in. There's a drive-through penalty for Michaela Arlen-Kotelinski because Ricardo Feller was speeding in the pit lane. Bortolotti, first flying lap, fastest lap of the race, and he's gained track position now over the Audi as Gunon arrives rather spectacularly. Work done for today. Out he gets, Renger van der Zande gets in. And also, number 21 has done the same as the sister car. A drive-through penalty now for the Stolz-Ludwig Mercedes for the pit stop duration time. They've got it wrong as well. They've not done a long enough pit stop, so both of the Zack-Speed Mercedes having to serve a drive-through penalty. That's great news for the Corvette squad here. Renger van der Zande runs away. So Mirko Bortolotti then, who has had a win at the Lausitz Ring with Ezequiel Perez Companc, has gained one place on the stops. He's going to gain another one because 21 Mercedes has to serve a drive-through. Right, 11 seconds, 10 seconds, 9 seconds for Gunon. Go, go, go. He needs to break the beam just after The countdown on the graphic says 0, which he will do now, and so 0.8 of a second over it. He will rejoin only just ahead of Ludwig, maintains the lead of the race therefore, but of course Ludwig has got to make a drive-through penalty anyway. But look now, the real danger is Bortolotti running in third place. The top two nose to tail, but number 21 Mercedes, there it is, has got to serve this drive-through penalty. Renger van der Zande then turns his way through Hugenholtz. Ludwig is behind, then Bortolotti looking like the danger. And what about the fourth place car here? Because can number 3, Calvin van der Linde, get close enough as well? It's all bunched up now, certainly amongst the top 3, and 3 different cars as well. The Audi is the one that's lost out on the stops, but can possibly claw its way back into the mix. Behind them, also pushing on, is Marvin Kirchhofer in the Man Filter Mercedes, who's taken over now from Indy Donker. But Renger van der Zande is about to be given a workover. He leads the way, but to an extent, some of the pressure will be taken off once the drive-through is served by number 21. You can imagine Peter Zakowski being very, very unhappy about both cars being pinged, but the evidence does not lie. The time starts at pit in, it finishes at pit out, and if it's not 65 seconds, you're bang to rights. So there is Ludwig, who's going to be a mighty frustrated driver. And look at the way that van der Linde is going. Closing, closing, closing all the time. Pommer and van der Linde have not yet had a win this year. They've not had a second. They've not been on the podium for third either. This could be the day of days. You never know what might happen up the road here. Van der Zande leads the way. Second is Ludwig. Third is Bortolotti. Fourth now is van der Linde as they come over the line. And there to serve the drive-through penalty is Luca Ludwig. Comes in. Massive frustration for him. Right, we've got more stops being served. Rolf Ineichen is in to give way now in 63 Lamborghini to Christian Engelhardt. Jaminet in the Porsche to give way to Michael Ammermüller. And there, look, blasting back into the race now is Luca Ludwig. We've got 26 minutes still on the clock, but it's going to be a forlorn hope now to salvage much out of this. I'll give you the full order once they've done the next lap. There you can see, having also gained on the stops, number 6, which has got Christopher Zanella at the wheel of it now. He's taken over from Florian Spengler there, but look, he's got the sister car of Marco Mappelli up behind him. So Mappelli has moved ahead, look, of number 1 of Christopher Mies, the Land Audi. There it is. Behind them is Patrick Niederhauser. So Mappelli in the pink and black Lamborghini is on a mission here. Just up the road ahead is Michael Ammermüller in the Porsche there for the Team 75 Bernhardt squad. And this gaggle of cars working its way now through the Masters curve once again. 25 minutes still on the clock. The pit window is open. And now, do we have any more penalties being offered? No, there the message line has been busy, but it's still telling us about the Zach Speed 21. It has taken that drive-through penalty. It's just not cleared itself. The same has now. The same is true of number 8, which is yet to come through. Right, 84, Maxi Goetz at the back of this little queue. Makes his move against Niederhauser on the outside line. That's going to translate to the inside if he can stand his ground. He can't. They brush, they touch. And so there, Maxi Goetz falls back in the queue. It's been a busy race with lots going on, but up front, Renger van der Zande leads Mirko Bortolotti by 0.869 of a second. If Gunnar and van der Zande win, it'll be the 6.5 different winning crew, won't it? Because it'll be a second win for Gunnar, but a first for van der Zande. That's going to throw the stats up in the air. Down towards Tarzan they come, but the one pushing on in third is van der Linde, doing a comparable pace to the top two. He's 1.3 seconds back and trying now to catch the two race leaders. Peter Zakowski, though, is a very glum man. As you look at number 48 Mercedes, this is Marvin Kirchhofer, forsaking his single-seater aspirations now to come into GT racing. And 26 with Stefan Mucker at the wheel in 5th. So these two cars, you've got the HTP and the Mucker cars getting themselves together. Of course, Mucker, a mainstay of Mercedes in the DTM for many, many seasons, make that decades, really. But splitting now to run a Mercedes and an Audi in GT. Interesting that they're, from both sides, actually allowed to do that. Luca Ludwig, having taken over from Stolz, he's massively fired up. He's done the absolute best in the first sector, running in 7th place. Philipp Eng there is 6th. 7th should be. There he is, Ludwig. But a long way back, 20 seconds, give or take, away from the race leaders now. But Zach Speed will need a stern word with the engineers overnight about why the cars were being released from the pit box early. Both of them having got it wrong on the stops, and both of them therefore having served penalties. So 20th is where you find Nikolai Silvest, 7th is where you find Luca Ludwig, and is that a car with a problem? 22 is the Nissan Mark Gassner at the wheel of it. It's a long way back, doesn't sound all that healthy. Ah, that's why, because there was contact with the Emil Lindholm driven Lamborghini, and that's why the Nissan sounds a bit second-hand, because it is. It was shoulder charged out of the way by Emil Lindholm. Called into play here to have a look at who was responsible for that. Did Mark Gassner close the door, or was the Finn Emil Lindholm rather gung-ho about it? Either way, he's going to have to bring the Arkin run car into the pit lane, the smoke billowing off it as the bodywork rubs against the tyre. So into the pit lane comes Emil Lindholm. He's been busy in ERC and WRC2 of late as well. He's as good on rally stages as he is in circuit racing, although this, I'm afraid, not his finest hour. Perhaps confused by having extra cars around him after being rallying recently. So the car is in, but whether the damage is enough to render it hors de combat, we will see. We can see the big groove it's put in the tyre. So I fear if this does go back out, it'll be many laps down and treating it as a test session for qualifying tomorrow morning. We've got 22 minutes just under still to run, and the Attempto racing team doesn't have a lot of joy in GT. It was always a very good team in Porsche racing, but since it's made that break into the GT arena, Arkin team has really rather struggled. There's the replay. Bodywork flies. And the fastest lap of the race, by the way, done by Luca Ludwig, just while he watched the Nissan get back onto the circuit. Luca Ludwig hugely irate now about that drive-through penalty. He is throwing everything at this to try and get himself back into the top six. There's the replay of the Lamborghini coming into the pit lane. The stop board goes flying. Everybody darts out of the way, but that's a car that's still in the pits and out of the race. Emil Lindholm was Emil Lindholm, but he's got out of the car, and that's the end of that. So you could argue it was self-induced. I'm afraid to say that that's the end of the day for that car. Now, second and third starting to squabble. Bortolotti versus Van der Linde now. Last time around, Van der Linde lapped quicker than the leader if he could get himself up past the Lamborghini. Easier said than done. Could he go after Renger van der Zande in the Corvette for the race lead? For the moment, it is this trio as one. In fourth, it's Marvin Kirchhofer, who is 7 seconds back. So that car is out of the mix. It's a three-way battle for honours between, and this is the beauty of GT3 racing, Corvette, the Chevrolet, the Huracan, the Lamborghini, and the R8, the Audi. Those are the three, first, second and third, as they come now through the Ari Luijendijk curve over the timing line. And here, look, the big grunty Chevrolet gets away. It booms past the pits. The Huracan behind. And now, look, Bortolotti having to think a bit more about defending from Kelvin van der Linde, who rather cheekily pulls to the inside line, trying to unsettle the Italian down in towards the Tarzan hairpin. Through the Hugenholtz bocht they come, round the back of the paddock, and now sprint towards the Slottermacher curve, named after the racer, but also skid school master. The Slottermacher school still based here, and any aspiring Dutch racing driver used to work there, either as an instructor or even in the case of Jan Lammers starting off just by washing cars. And so many Dutch talents have come through Rob Slottermacher's good offices. Right, you're on board with the very quick South African Kelvin van der Linde, having a look to the inside of Bortolotti, trying to unsettle him on the run to turn 9. Didn't benefit really out of all of that. And who is benefiting is Renger van der Zande, because he's pulling away up the road now. Van der Zande gets clear by another length or so. On pure pace, I think second and third might just be shading him ever so slightly, but because Bortolotti has to defend and van der Linde is stuck behind him, that's helping van der Zande maintain this lead with 19 minutes to go. But now look, Kelvin van der Linde is looking ever more towy at getting up past Bortolotti. Looks to the inside at Kumho curve, to the Ari Luijendijk right-hander next then, and then up past the pits, past the big grandstands. Speed building all the time, limited runoff on the outside there. It was that part of the circuit where Michaela Arden-Kotelinski went off in free practice yesterday, caused a red flag. Down towards Tarzan van der Linde again, pulls to the inside line, down through the gears, but he's not close enough. He gets close enough, but by the time he has done that, it's time to turn in, so he can't have a proper move on the inside, and Bortolotti gets a free ride for a couple of corners. There is Ludwig, fastest lap of the race, and another one just set. He is lapping quicker than, obviously, the race leaders, the frustration being that he's so far back in the pack now, relatively speaking, in 7th place, but Ludwig here showing what might have been. Can he get into the top 6 at the expense of Philipp Eng? Stefan Mucker is 5th further up the road than that, so how high can Ludwig get before the very end? There is Renger van der Zande then, with this gap building, 8/10 last time over Bortolotti, and again van der Linde tries to force a mistake out of it as they turn towards now turn 9. On board with van der Linde. Down through the gears, 2nd gear for the Hans Ernst curve. Sprints away now towards Kumho, and this is where he's got to be fast, and he's got to stay on the back of Bortolotti all the way through, ready for the Tarzan hairpin. If he can stay tied up behind him and more bodywork lies in the road, then he might be able to make a move at the hairpin. If that bodywork stays there, you can imagine, can't you, an interruption to get it out of harm's way, because nobody wants to strike that. Van der Linde has a look to the inside. Again, he's not quite close enough. Down to 2nd gear for the hairpin. If an interruption is made, if a safety car is called to bring that bodywork out of harm's way, it could be the lifeline that a number of drivers are looking for in this race. So Niels Wittich, the race director, will be keeping an eye on the closed circuit pictures, on this feed that you're looking at as well, and looking at whether it's a danger. It is a big chunk of what looks like an inner wheel arch of somebody's car. Up towards the Slottermacher curve they come now. You can see the different configurations of Zandvoort these days. It's a busy circuit, new ownership. Prince Bernhard van Oranje is currently in charge of the company that operates Zandvoort. Bigger events attracted. The historic Grand Prix is a major part of the calendar in September, along with the ADAC GT Masters. As there, van der Linde again tries to unsettle Bortolotti. He can't do it. The renewed optimism here for Dutch motor racing is the renewed optimism mirrored by Calvin van der Linde, because he's looking very rapid indeed now to get past Bortolotti, and Bortolotti in turn is closing on van der Zande. Ludwig continuing to push on, incidentally, down in 7th place and do absolute bests in sectors. Same original set of tyres, of course, but the fuel load coming down all the while. Getting a replay here of van der Linde's next effort on the inside at turn 9, but again, it just doesn't pay out for him. The bodywork line to the side of the road there, as well as the cars now sprint their way through the final turn on the lap. This is the Arie Luijendijk curve, and here, look, van der Zande gets away. Out of the hairpin, up towards the Gerlach curve they come. The gap between 1st and 3rd, 1.2 seconds last time around. And that bodywork that we saw at the exit of the Kumho curve doesn't look like it's going to be a problem. Either somebody has brushed it, or eventually the air pressure just blows it off the road. Maybe a brave marshal can get to it and move it, and so the race continues. Green flag conditions here. The leading 3 well clear of this man, Marvin Kirchhofer, who in turn has got Stefan Mucker behind him. And then in 6th, it's Philipp Eng, winner this year. And then 7th, charging on behind, it's Luca Ludwig. And in strife, look, is Marco Mappelli. Punctured tyre, possibly. Certainly damaged bodywork. And he's got to limp a whole lap back here. Marco Mappelli, let's have a look and see. Yep, tyre's gone down. Now, for why? Is that because he's run over something, or is this now going to be a problem? Pirelli rubber they run on. Not suggesting it's a Pirelli problem until we see anything else, but I'm afraid to say for that car, it's not looking good. Jules Gounon looks pretty happy, and there's more bodywork lying on the road. Now, is that in a dangerous place? That's on the pit straight, isn't it? And if you do think about making a move, you're going to find that. Does it get blown out of the way? No. There are gaps, but is it enough to ask a marshal to get to it? and move it out of the way. It's bits of the Lamborghini, presumably, that as the tyre has let go coming past the pits, it's broken the bodywork. So 13 minutes to go. There's the leader, Renger van der Zande, but are we going to be able to go through to the end of the race with these bits of inner wheel arch lying by the side of the road? Van der Zande, Bortolotti, Van der Linde, that's the order. Luca Ludwig, another fastest lap of the race. It's remarkable this, the way that he's going, pounding on in 7th place. In many ways, little to gain out of it, but the point's crucial for the championship. Number 21, 4th coming into this race, Ludwig and Stolz. The two Lucas, as there, look, Renger van der Zande with one job, and that's to win the race and score points to help Jules Gounon in the championship. The championship leader, Jules Gounon, Daniel Kalbitz, of course, giving up his championship lead. But for Jules Gounon, a win here would be very good news indeed. Second and third, it's still Bortolotti, keeping Van der Linde at bay as they thread their way now down towards the Hans curve again. Next question is traffic, I suppose, because we've got back markers up the road in a race that has got still 23 circulating. There, being negotiated, keeping out of harm's way, is Marco Mappelli. He does exactly the right thing, moves to the side of the road, so he'll have to now switch sides when it's safe, so that he's on the inside of the track ready to come to pit in. Is this going to show us how the tyre let go? Yes, there it is. Look, all the bodywork gets showered across the road. The tyre blows, and there past him goes Christopher Mies, past him Patrick Niederhauser, past him Maxi Goetz. And Mappelli couldn't have had that in a worse place, just going over the timing line. So he's got to limp a whole lap back. The lead gap at the start of this lap was 0.8 of a second between Jules Gounon and, Renger van der Zande, I should say, now in 77, and Mirko Bortolotti. So Renger van der Zande extending that margin a little bit now, as they're finally back into the pit lane, has limped the Lamborghini. Big disappointment this for Norbert Siedler and Marco Mappelli, and that off the road, I fear, was Bortolotti. The car that was second is off, coming out of the Tarzan hairpin. It's not the Tarzan hairpin, it's a Skyflak, and that is because of a punctured tyre. Look, bodywork flies, the tyre goes down, and off the road goes Mirko Bortolotti. He was lucky to catch that at a very fast corner and ending up in the gravel, but that now gives a chance to Kelvin van der Linde, who suddenly is released up in a second place. There, almost wall of death style on the banked gravel goes the Lamborghini, and the safety car is deployed because that Lamborghini is going nowhere. It is stuck in the gravel, and now the safety car comes out, and Jules Gounon is a very concerned man indeed. Safety car deployed, it's fingers crossed. If anybody can win at Zandvoort, it is Dutchman Renger van der Zande, but now there is the safety car. It will scoop up the field with just over 10 minutes to go. It has been deployed, it's not got the leader, it's taken 22 Nissan Mark Gassner. Now, it's not looking good, is it, if you're in a Lamborghini at the moment for punctured tyres? So, by the look of it, same corner on both cars, left rear. Different teams operating them. And so now the field allowed past the safety car until it finds Renger van der Zande's Corvette. 10 minutes to go. There's the leader. So now the advantage that Renger van der Zande had has disappeared altogether. Kelvin van der Linde then right up behind. It's going to be great to see on the restart what happens, and can we have a 7th different winning combination? I suppose even allowing for van der Zande and Gounon, it will be another winning crew, because although Gounon's had a win, van der Zande is new back into the championship, but for the purposes of any doubts, it would be a different winner altogether if the Audi could do it. What about third? Because all of a sudden Kirchhofer is in the mix, so is Mucker. Then you've got Philipp Eng here, now up into 5th, and Luca Ludwig is 6th. There's the snatch vehicle on its way down towards Skyflach to get the Lamborghini out of the way, but it's a long drive through the gravel before it reaches the Lamborghini. Now, that's one car from the HB team and one from Grasser's team that have had punctures. Would you bring the other car in to be safe? Would you let them carry on and see what happens? A bit like Ferrari did in the British Grand Prix a week ago. Currently, you're on board and you're third with Marvin Kirchhofer, who's very much in the mix now. This, of course, has been a lifeline for Luca Ludwig, because on the restart he might be able to gain some places. And how many laps are we going to be behind the safety car? All this counts within the 57-minute reduced duration. And Kirchhofer trying to maintain the tyre warmth and the tyre pressures. There he is, focused on doing the job properly. Quick look in the mirror to see where the Stefan Lücker Pink Panther Mercedes is behind. So Kirchhofer turns into the Hans Ernst curve, this second gear under normal race conditions section of the track. Guns the throttle, blasts away towards the Kumho curve. You know that cliche about the man behind the wheel, it's barely a wheel, is it? It's certainly not a complete circle. Saving space, saving weight in the cockpit and in front of the driver. Not that that last shot was really showing it, but there's this wealth of buttons all doing different things that he's got to get his head around on instruction. Safety car stays out then as it comes over the timing line. The field comes through, and of course on the restart it's going to be Renger van der Zande who has to control the pace. The young fans enjoying themselves in the dunes as the cars then turn their way down towards Tarzan. 7.5 minutes and counting. So it was a race that began with the drama for number 2 Audi, Jeffrey Schmidt being the non-starter, grinding to a halt on the formation lap. So we had a second one, a 57-minute race, and now the safety car deployed. We've had bits of bodywork and punctures on the road, but now we've got this Lamborghini stuck in the gravel. The snatch vehicle has arrived with its telescopic arm to hoik it out of the way. This is the delicate operation because you don't want to do more damage to the car. And the race director monitoring all of this, eager to get the race back underway as soon as he possibly can. So, what have we got? 6 3/4 minutes in this 7th race in the ADAC GT Masters for 2017. As ever, a hugely competitive championship, wide open this year, and the fans in the pit straight stand have found themselves on the big screens. Time for a wave. Lots of man filter guests here as well. You see the yellow flag being waved there. It's not to say warning, it's to say I'm supporting Marvin Kirchhofer and Indy Doncher, who drove the first stint, Indy Donker, in the Manfilter HTP run Mercedes. Now, the Callaway competition team are smiling for the moment. Will they be smiling in 6 minutes' time? Their car leads, but it's going to be under attack from Calvin van der Linde, who might well give ADAC Motorsport a maiden victory this year. And I think I'm right in saying it would be a first for the team in the championship as well. It's a team that's chipped away and has yet to score an outright victory. This could be the day of days then for the ADAC Motorsport team. In the dunes, the fans there have also found themselves on the big screen. So there are the race leading cars. Behind the safety car, the Callaway competition Corvette still heads the pack, and behind you've got the ADAC Motorsport Audi then. Calvin van der Linde, the 2014 champion, and now Jules Gounon. Is he fearful about spots of rain? Well, as the cars turn their way up over the line, track temperature 23.6 degrees. The forecast was actually for some rain over the course of the weekend, but it was bright and sunny this morning. Certainly the wind has picked up, so it might be blowing a little bit of precipitation this way. The team manager of number 4 does have to go to race control after the race, and that's the ADAC Motorsport car of Dennis Marshall and Patrick Niederhauser. Jules Gounon, a nervous man. So the French driver who came out of F4 through Porsche Racing and then into GTs watches on, and now the driver's getting ready for the restart as the cars jink left and right, bit of weaving to bring the tyre pressures back up and the temperatures back up as well. But the question being, when we go starting again, how many racing laps we will get before the checkered flag comes out. There's no extension to the race. All this counts, as I say, within the 57 minutes that we have. And Luca Ludwig is going to be another man to watch on that restart, as he will be determined to try to gain more places. I hate to say that safety cars often breed safety cars, but with the field all bunched up and an awful lot at stake now, because as far as the championship is concerned, there's only Nürburgring, Sachsenring and Hockenheim to go after this weekend. You need to be scoring big points. The pressure is on some drivers. It has taken a while to get number 19 out of the way, so it's going to be at least one more lap, I would have thought. See, thankfully it's not too far now away from the vehicle access point, so if they can get the snatch vehicle behind that barrier, we might be able to go racing at the end of this lap. It just depends really on the speed of the safety car. If he trips onto another lap, then I think we're going to be doomed for a racing lap. But for the moment, Renger van der Zande heading the way. Niels Vitic will be looking at the closed circuit pictures from all of the different corners and making sure that if that snatch vehicle is behind the wall, it's not there yet, we might be able to go racing. It doesn't necessarily need to be parked. It'll be in this lap, I was going to say, as long as the safety vehicle there is heading through that gap. By the time the race field gets to the point of the lap where it is, it'll be clear, and so that's the decision taken. We will go racing, and a flying lap is a minute and a half. We will probably get 2 laps in as a prediction. Let's just see, though, now as the car of Renger van der Zande then bottles everybody up at the Hansens curve. When he comes through this left, he will sprint away, try and get the jump on Kelvin van der Linde, who wants to be on his toes and stay with him. He's trying to anticipate when van der Zande is going to go. You can't go and slow. You've got to go. Once you start accelerating, you have to keep accelerating. You can't force people to brake behind you, and so now van der Zande goes as he heads up towards the Kumo curve. Kelvin van der Linde tries to stay with him, but the gap extends ever so slightly. This crucial for the race win for Renger van der Zande as he blasts out of the Line-Dijk curve over the timing line. It was half a second. Let's see what the gap is as we go racing. Time for 2 laps down towards Tarzan. 0.6 of a second between them. Third is Kirchhofer. And there, Ludwig to the inside of Philippe Eng. He barges his way up the inside, elbows out. He's coming through. Luca Ludwig charges up the inside of Philippe Eng. Place gained. Great stuff. Absolute commitment by Luca Ludwig. He knew he had one shot at that. Eng defended. Ludwig kept on coming. It was a little bit bold, but it has worked for him. There was certainly contact between them as Eng tried to close the door, but Ludwig kept on coming. Take the place, argue about it afterwards. So he's gone through. Luca Ludwig is now 5th. Eng was thinking about looking for a way past Mucke, but it was Ludwig that took full advantage of all of that as the cars then come through the Slottermacher curve out of Hunsrück. Look at all the rubber being junked by the side of the road. Up front then, in the first sector, van der Zande was getting away slightly from Kelvin van der Linde, who's running out of options now. Kirchhofer third, dropping back, and has Eng got any damage? The BMW dropping into the clutches now of Christian Engelhardt's Lamborghini, the former Porsche racer. Engelhardt now closing up onto the back of Philippe Eng for 6th place, as there through on the inside line goes Nikolai Silvestre, putting himself up past Maximilian Hecklander. Gertz makes a move now up against number 1. Christopher Mies hangs on to that place, but Maxi Gertz has already relieved Niederhauser of 1 spot and wants to try and gain another one and get into the top 10 if he can. They're going to start the last lap of the time this lap through, but of course there's the regulation lap at the end. It's time plus 1. So there is this that they're starting, and then the regulation lap on top of it. Down towards Tarzan they go. 0.6 of a second between the leaders, and Ludwig is good for another place before the end. He's right on the back of Stefan Mucke now. Lower back, a challenge look there. Sven Müller coming under attack because right behind him is Frank Stippler in the Mucke Audi. Takes some saying that after all these years of Mucke Mercedes. But Frank Stippler, lights flashing, is right there looking for a way by. Jules Gounon doesn't know where to look because with 2 laps, this and 1 more, it's nervous times. A second win beckons. More points in the championship beckon as well. But with everybody having bunched up, there's a good Porsche fight now. Alex McDowell ahead of Sven Müller for 13th and 14th places. Points in the top 10. Van der Linde having a look to the inside line to try to unsettle the Corvette. Can't find a way by. So Marcus Pommer, who was a winner here in Formula 3, handing the car over to Kelvin van der Linde, and now that closing onto the tail of the Corvette. There is Marcus Pommer looking on. In the FIA Formula 3 European Championship, he was victorious. Jules Gounon's got everything crossed. There's nothing more he can do. He forces a smile, but in fairness, Renger van der Zande is doing everything right. He's not making mistakes. He's not let the Audi get too close. And of course, on the big power parts of the circuit, the Corvette's got the advantage, and here is another of them on the way up towards the timing line. Through they come then now. The clock has hit 0. The regulation lap then is about to be started. Go, go, go. Jules Gounon urging on. Renger van der Zande, we're on the final lap. The gap comes down into the Tarzan hairpin. The Corvette looks like it's going to hang on for a second win, but it'll be a 7th different winning combination of drivers of the year. But Kelvin van der Linde, the 2014 champion, has not given up yet. He could not be closer. Look at Hugenholtz. Can he find a way up alongside the vet? Stab on the brakes there, coming out of the corner to try to unsettle the Audi driver behind. And now, of course, heading through Hunsrück, the power of the Corvette should tell. The gap widens. It's rather elasticated. You've got the nimble Audi chasing the big grunty Chevrolet Corvette up the road. Van der Linde has to hustle his way here through Schijfvlak and down towards the Masters curve. Once again, he brakes late. Gets a good run down now towards turn 9, but he's not near enough to try that move to unsettle the Corvette driver on the inside. So Van der Zande is hanging on to it. And again, you see there's another straight coming up now. So the grunt and go Corvette ought to be able to power clear, leaving Pommer to brake late. And then there's another straight at the end of that next sequence. So the Chevrolet is in the box seat here. And of course, Kelvin van der Linde doesn't want to try anything risky and go off and affect points for either driver. Crashes over the curb through the Hans Ernst curve. Our 7th different winning combination of the year beckons because we've got 2 corners to go. And Renger van der Zande, guesting for Callaway competition in the Chevrolet, is about to come out of the Arie Luijendijk curve and head up towards the checkered flag at the end of another enthralling ADAC GT Masters contest. The Chevrolet wins at Zandvoort. Renger van der Zande and Jules Gounon win. Kelvin van der Linde and Marcus Pommer take 2nd, and 3rd goes the way of Marvin Kirchhofer and Indy Donja. Their best result of the year, the best also for van der Linde and Pommer. And look at this queue of cars coming over the line, dead heating virtually lower down the order. 10th goes the way of Christopher Zanella ahead of Niederhauser. Mies drops to 12th, McDowell drops to 13th. And in all of that, Sven Muller ends up 19th. He got mugged towards the end. An enthralling race and a win for Renger van der Zande along with Jules Gounon. Now, how did people start losing places? Muller was trying to go around the outside of Mies and ran out of road. That was all self-induced because at the same time, Mies was being attacked by Patrick Niederhauser on the inside at the Hans Ernst curve, and Sven Muller off the road, rally crosses his way back onto the circuit. Here it is from his point of view. He braked as late as he dares. He found the 2 cars ahead. Had to kind of go straight on, really, rather than clout the back of the cars ahead of him, through the gravel, back onto the circuit. A long time ago, Porsche had a good rally pedigree and rally cross pedigree as well, and Sven Muller and Robert Renau before him throwing everything at that race, on and off the track. Of course, their undoing was qualifying. Renau in the gravel, so it left them with a lot of work to do. So 19th in the end. You look at the grid, you think not much progress was made, but early on it was by certainly Sven Muller. But Renger van der Zande, he's the kind of guest you might invite more often, isn't it? He's been a mainstay of Mercedes programmes for a while, but now coming into the Corvette for this weekend as a guest and doing a great job and bringing, of course, Dutch attention to the weekend and a Dutch winner to the weekend as well. Renger van der Zande wins with Jules Gounon for Callaway Corvette. A team that has had some good results across the championship for a number of seasons and getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So season on season, the Callaway team ever more successful, and indeed here a winner in the very first race of ADAC GT Masters at Holland back in 2012 when it was Diego Alessi and Daniel Karlovitz, the absent Daniel from behind the wheel at least, who did the driving. There was talk that Daniel might be here this weekend, and hopefully he will be, but we wish him well after his Spa accident, and hopefully we'll be able to be racing in the 24 hours next weekend, but it all depends on that recovery, and of course a gruelling circuit as well, Spa, with all the load going through the driver's body. Same here, some quick corners, and there are, despite the fact that Holland is meant to be flat, a few undulations as well. Undulating fortunes for many in that race also. Luca Ludwig in the end taking 5th behind Stefan Mucker, Marvin Kirchhofer for 3rd, Kelvin van der Linde 2nd, and a win for Jules Gounon and Renger van der Zande by 0.375 of a second from Marcus Pommer and Kelvin van der Linde. Indy Donja and Marvin Kirchhofer 3rd from Sebastian Asch and Stefan Mucker 4th. The Lucas, Stolz and Ludwig, with the fastest lap to Luca Ludwig's credit, 5th ahead of Nick Katzberg and Philipp Eng, Rolf Ineiken and Christian Engelhardt 7th ahead of Amma Müller and Jaminet, Götz and Assenheimer, with then Florian Spengler and Christopher Zanella rounding out the top 10. And those that we lost, well, Bortolotti in the gravel, Mappelli with damage in the pits, and also the same true of Emil Lindholm, Salaquada, I should say, and Geipel getting together early in the race, and Jeffrey Schmidt never even getting into it with mechanical dramas somewhere on that green flag lap for the Land car. Well, Jules Gounon, now with his overalls fastened up again, ready for the podium, is a very happy man indeed. He's had a win this year, but What a debut for Renger van der Zande at Callaway in the 2017 championship, because under all the pressure, he guides the car to a win. Messi, says Jules Gounon, a very happy driver indeed. And Renger van der Zande pleases the Dutch fans and the Dutch promoter by winning on home soil. And that should attract a few more people out tomorrow for the second race to see how well the Dutch combination has gone. The Aust team then taking second. Kelvin van der Linde with Marcus Pommer taking second spot. There is Renger van der Zande being given the regulation Pirelli winner's cap. And third, another Dutch driver for the podium. As there, Renger van der Zande talks to the fans. Indy Donker along with Marvin Kerkhoff for third. There, the HTP man filter Mercedes. So Chevrolet, Audi, Mercedes, the top three. There is Indy Donker with his clogs. Quite right too. Shows how the balance of performance in GT3 works. You've got these different cars, different teams, all competitive. And Marvin Kerkhoff is about to change footwear as well, when in Rome and all that. Indy Donker, another of the many who has switched from single-seaters to GT cars. And is doing very, very well indeed. So he's a happy man. Kelvin van der Linde goes to congratulate the third place combination. Marcus Pommer there as well. And very shortly we'll get the drivers up towards the podium. And man filter with their own clogs for the occasion. The van der Zande family very happy. Dad's had a win. Let's recap. Third place was this car, the HTP Motorsport Mercedes. Indy Donker started. Marvin Kerkhoff brought it home. The Dutch-German combination taking third place. Second, a really spirited effort in the opening stint by Marcus Pommer. The same true of Kelvin van der Linde, and he tried everything after that safety car period. It was not to be, however. Kelvin van der Linde and Marcus Pommer second, but Jules Gounon takes a second win of the season, and his new co-driver, Renger van der Zande, makes a great debut in the Callaway Corvette, bringing it home under pressure to win the 7th race of the year in the ADAC GT Masters. Looking down to the pit lane then, the Parc Fermé conditions apply for the top three cars. The podium, the new podium, new a couple of years ago at Zandvoort, looms over the top of the pit lane. Zandvoort, after some troubled times, has really come through a resurgence in recent seasons with the ADAC GT Masters, the DTM, the historic Grand Prix, new ownership, new commitment, and also new planning, not loopholes, but a clause found that allows more noisy days, so more use of the circuit, and therefore bigger meetings being brought here. And every time you come to Zandvoort, a little bit more work has been done. The place doesn't look like an old circuit anymore. It has plenty of new facilities, and every season a little bit more is done to try and modernise the place without losing that charm that it has. I know that a chunk of the old circuit at the top of the lap was lopped off, and the houses have been built upon it, but the current configuration echoes the old Zandvoort. The very first Zandvoort circuit, the street circuit in the town, but the permanent circuit built and opened in 1948 and has been a home to Dutch motorsport ever since. Confirmation of the result, Jules Gounon and Renger van der Zande the winners from Marcus Pommer, and Kelvin van der Linde with third, Marvin Kerkhoff and Indy Donker. The very first race meeting here, that 1948 opener, was organised by the British Racing Drivers Club, the BRDC. Sammy Davis, racer of the time, had been instrumental in helping with the design and the construction of the circuit, and then the BRDC came to open it. But this weekend it is the ADAC GT Masters headlining, and as the drivers are called forward, Renger van der Zande and Jules Gounon will stand on the top step of the podium here. Second place will go the way of Marcus Pommer and Kelvin van der Linde. A great reception from the Audi Motorsport team, one of the Audi Sport customer racing squads. And then clogs on. Indy Donker and Marvin Kerkhoff for third place. Two Dutch drivers then on the podium. and that gets another good noisy reception from the team below and from the fans opposite on the pit straight. And then the team's representative to step forward as well from Callaway competition, and now there will be the national anthem of the winning team. And so the Callaway competition team winners here at Zandvoort in the first of our 2 ADAC GT Masters races of the weekend. And now Thomas Vosch, the head of ADAC's Motorsport and Classic department, steps forward to hand over the trophies to 2 very happy, victorious drivers, to Renger van der Zande and to Jules Gounon. Then for second place there, Calvin van der Linde, Marcus Palmer give ADAC Motorsport its best result of the season, and that will be a great boost for the team. And then third place goes the way of Marvin Kirchhofer and Indy Donker, and there the Satina clock is given to the winning team. So a great job done by Renger van der Zande and by Jules Gounon, of course, who did that opening stint to put that car up front. And although it wasn't easy for either of them during the course of the race, a sterling effort here at Zandvoort. And the teams entering into the spirit. Now they enter into the battle on the podium of the champagne.